taken hostage, Pyotr Belanov. He works in the main department for organized crime at the Russian Interior Ministry. In recent years, his team has freed more than 500 people.
But the most interesting is that it was made under the living houses.
These pictures were taken in Grozny soon after its liberation. Here are the so-called zindani, or special cells to keep the hostages in. There are 5 or 6 of these basement cells in every district of the city. The special services say this one belonged to Mavlady Udugov, one of Mascharov's closest associates. Look at the chalk marks on the wall. Do they remind you of anything?
The main base and point for negotiations concerning hostages was Grozny, where all experts in slave trade and people abducting were congregating. The whole city knows, every resident knows that the central square, the Friendship of Nations Square, used to be the place of slave trade. One could come to this market and place an order, what one needs. A private, an officer, a civilian, an engineer, and one is welcome to buy. You know, there in Chechnya, each family builds a house. So one fence unites 9-10 houses. Each has a basement, and in each basement they keep hostages.
Anatoly Geller, a student. He lives in Naberezhnya Chelny, hundreds of kilometers from Grozny. He stopped by to take his mother to work. 10 minutes went by. When she emerged from the building, her son was not there. In a few days, he ended up in Urus-Martan.
In the basements I was kept, there were small cells for 2, 1.5 to 2 meters, 3-4 such cells with an iron door at the end of the hall. Constant dampness, rotten boards, and on the plank beds it's written, on purpose written, for kafirs. When they were making them for us, for people.
On November 26, at 10 o'clock in the morning, a white car drove up. An Arab went out of the car. His name was Abu Asid. He came into our yard and asked, "Where's Anya, Anita?"
Yevgenia Timchenko still lives in Grozny. Her granddaughters, Masha, 12, and Anya, who is 15, were also kept in Urus-Martan. When she was being filmed, she did not know the girls had managed to escape, after seeing that the Arab mercenary who took them had gone away to fight.
They took me to some building. It was a 2-story building. Some iron gates and the fence. He took me behind that 2-story house. He shot several times and said, "I give you life, but you can forget about your children, forget that they exist. They will lead their own life." And he went on. And until I crawled to the gate, they weren't there anymore. And now I can't sleep at nights. I think about kids. They're orphans. Their mother has died of tuberculosis. Where are they? If they can hear me, let them go home, come back. Help me, Mr. Putin. Help me get my kids back. If there is any help. I don't know, I'll die without them.
Вот этот, условно говоря, людской товар был предметом торга.
So these, let's say, human items were subject for haggling. Internal trade between clans, families. Why? As Urus Martan has lately gone out of Maskhadov's hand, it came under Wahhabite wing, led by the Akhmadov brothers.
Урус Мартан попал под ваххабитское крыло сепаратистов, руководимое семьей или братьев Ахмадовых.
Главными хозяевами, можно сказать, этого...
Chief masters of this, let's say, settlement or regional center were the Akhmadov brothers,
братья Ахмадовы,
8 brothers.
8 братьев.
Major Vyacheslav Izmailov recruited servicemen in Zhukovsky. As soon as he received his first notification that one of the conscripts had died in Chechnya, Izmailov signed up as a volunteer. Then when peace was struck, he removed the soldiers who had been left prisoners.
Из них один из братьев Увайс Ахмадов.
Among them, one brother, Uvais Akhmadov, ran people abducting business, being the head of Urus Martan police department.
The elder brother, Ramzan Akhmadov, proclaimed himself to be the emir of Urus Martan and took command of the Jamaat battalion, which belonged to Khatab's band. This battalion, which specialized in kidnapping people, was based in Urus Martan at a former boarding school. The younger brother, at the time, worked for the local police. He probably got paid for this. The local police were often used as cover for slave traders.
After 1996, after the presidential election, when Maskhadov went to Moscow, and after his coming back, such structures began to be organized. The Ministry of Sharia Security of the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria.
Tavuz Kaisayev was filmed quite recently in custody. Not long before, he had been working at the Sharia Security Ministry in the Department for Abductions.
So the structures were being set up. They faced the task. As people abducting didn't exist in the Chechen Republic, so it shouldn't appear wrong. On this basis, the structures were created. People abducting Department of Police. When I worked there, it revealed that they not only fought these crimes, but also abducted people.
Chechnya's slave market was carved up into zones of influence. The biggest of these, the Shatoy, Nozha-Yurt, and Vyedino districts, were controlled by Shamil Basayev. The settlements of Al-Khazurova, Goyskaya, and Komsomolskaya were controlled by Salman Raduyev, now also in custody, and later by the Yamadayev brothers. Shali, Chechnya's financial center, was under the influence of Abu Mavsayev, who had graduated in his time from the Astrakhan Police Academy and was notorious for the cruelty with which he tortured Russian soldiers and officers. And Urus Martan was a territory of the Akhmadov brothers.
Ramzan Akhmadov came personally, introduced himself, said that he was so-and-so who abducted you. We are trying to sell you. Same words all the time. Not all the people were abducted in Urus Martan. Urus Martan was the storage citadel. Hostages were abducted everywhere. In Dagestan, Ossetia, Ingushetia, Stavropol region, in all Russia, including Moscow. All this took place at metro station in Moscow. My friend came to meet the Chechen who had got out of the car. So my friend got out to meet the Chechen from the car, and the Chechen stayed. Then I was taken out of the car and put into a truck full with the glass fiber.
The same day, Kirill Perchenko was about to board a plane to go on vacation with his relatives. He was born and bred in the very center of Moscow, next to Patriarch Pons.
It's a long truck. It is tuned to transport people. In the nearest cab, there is a compartment made of wood. There were mattresses, even water closet, as they were ready for a long trip. They had a lamp that switched on when we approached militia, so everything was prepared thoroughly. And the rest space was full with glass fiber. 2 guards and me were put in that closed space.
For the first time in my life when I realized that there are situations in life when a man is ready to finish up everything in his life, because it's very hard to manage with the situation.
Yelena, Kirill's mother, thought that her son's car had broken down. She flew alone. When she returned 3 days later, she began to realize.
Then in a month and a half they just called and said that we have your son and we want a ransom.
They brought me to Grozny, to a cornfield where we were detrained. They unloaded the glass fiber and put us into another car and went to Grozny itself. On September 24, I was brought to Urus-Martan. They placed me in the basement. There were prisoners, and the situation there was quite different. It started by a local entertainment that was called registration or propiska. A man entered and said, "It's your home, I am your father, my name is Islam." From this moment, I realized that not everything would be fine, because I saw the people who were there not for the first month. It was hard.
Там сидели люди, Сави сидел, замечательный татский.
There were people, Savi, a great Tat, the Sephard Jew, very merry person. They cut off 2 of his fingers, as the brother couldn't ransom him in time. It meant that my family couldn't raise so much money for me. They said they'd cut off the finger. Then they called the family saying I lost the finger. Then they give me the telephone to prove it. After that it goes on. Later they cut off the second finger saying no one needs you, no one ransoms you.
Savi Azaryev is deputy director of the Volgograd Asbestos Works. As usual, he was on his way to work. His relatives managed to collect $300,000 for the ransom. This was not enough, and the captors threatened to cut off another finger.
I've been treated so wild because I am a Jew. They're especially cruel to Jews, to those who were with Russian troops in Afghanistan, to those from special services.
Savi Azaryev was kidnapped on January 5th, 1999. That day, the country discussed altogether different news.
First task is International Monetary Fund. The second is Chechnya. This one is a harder issue.